All right, we are recording. All right. Well, I didn't tell you this before we hopped on here. This is our first official video podcast, considering we're on Zoom. But
It's okay.
hope you guys are doing well out there today. I'm Ryan Brown. I'm your host of Between the Fence Posts here for Jefferson County Extension, and we have Dr. Charley Martinez on. Doc, how you doing today?
Doing good. A pleasure to be with you.
Glad to have you. Um, so a lot of y'all have seen Dr. Martinez at some of our programs, specifically Master Farm Manager. He is a professor in, I'll let you introduce yourself. You go ahead and introduce yourself. You know your title.
Sometimes it's also like depends what crowd, right? I'm Charlie Martinez. I'm an assistant professor in the Ag and Resource Economics Department. I also serve as the state specialist for farm and financial management, and then also I'm the director for the UT Center Farm Management.
Yeah, so that's a longer title than I was going to give you. So I'm glad you went ahead and did it. So Doc, the reason we're having you on today is because you are have kind of been dubbed as the expert about farmland loss, farmland transition, and things like that. What we're seeing more than ever in the state's history, in my opinion, being a full resident of the state for my entire life, outside of a few years when I was in Georgia there. But um, can you just kind of give us a quick intro about what you guys have done in the last, say, 5 years, really since COVID, and kind of what you focused on and some of the work you guys have done around farmland loss and transitioning in Tennessee?
Yeah, to answer that is gonna stick with me
Tease
is
it
what I'll
out.
say.
I want the
Yes,
long
stick with
answer.
me.
That's good.
Stick with me. Um, I don't know if I would consider myself the expert, but I would say that we've done a lot of work here that I haven't seen anywhere else. That is the reason why we end up talking about a lot of things pertaining to farmland conversion in Tennessee. So in 2021, there was some communication from TDA talking about this report that came out in 2020 from the Farmland Trust, stating that at the time Tennessee was the number fourth threatened state in the country when it came to farmland conversion. And when that was first brought to us, it was in 2021, and then we kind of talked about it here and there. But then in 2022, the report was revamped by Farmland Trust and went on to rank Tennessee number three as the number three threatened state. And so that spurred on some conversations between Tennessee Department of Agriculture and Tennessee Farm Bureau. And I say we, it was myself and three other colleagues, Dr. Aaron Smith, who is our crops economist in our department, Dr. Chris Boyer, he was a professor then, but now he's our department head, and then Dr. Chris Clark, who was our department head at that time and is now a vice chancellor in UTIA system. And we met with folks from TDA and Farm Bureau, and we were talking about the report. And one person in particular, I'm sure a lot of people know, Commissioner Hatcher, was saying, "Hey, we have this report. There's this number. Is this true or not true?" That was a simple question. But as oftentimes things go, a simple question is not as simple to answer when you start trying to give a measurable and accurate estimation. Starting in 2022, basically all the way through 2023 and some in 2024, we set out, and I say we, there was a 12-man team made up of graduate students from animal science, ag econ department on the UT main campus, and professors in our department, and some grad students. And we would meet pretty frequently and try to dig around in data that was both publicly available and data that we had to go track down. And so to put this in perspective, at first it was, well, we have census data. Well, census data, it used to be the golden standard of reporting in terms of people would answer the survey, send back the information, and USDA would put that out, and you have a really good handle on what is out there from an ag standpoint. Well, over time, response rate has gone down. I think a function of that is how complex the survey has gotten. And then
Right.
sometimes folks, when they get it, they might have good intentions of filling it out, and then they never get to it. Life gets in the way, and so that's understandable. And so The result is you don't get a lot of tangible information that is consistent, from a response perspective. And so we started with the census because that was a good starting point just to have a launch point. And so we collected data from all the way from 1997 to 2017. And so from that standpoint, we had starting to get some estimations, and Commissioner Hatcher was content with that information, but he had questions since 2017 because by that time we're sitting in 2022 and 2023. We didn't have a census to rely on, and so we started looking for other data sources. One of the data sources that we ended up using was a data source called Cropscape, which is a data layer. If anyone's listening, is a mapper. So it's basically a map that comes with some data points, and basically it takes a 30 meter by 30 meter picture. It allocates coverage based off of density, and so they actually have it where they can detail it to types of agriculture. So like row crops of corn, sorghum, cotton, wheat. And they also have pasture in there, forestry. But one of the unique data sets or unique data points in there is developed. And so they have low, medium, and high developed non-open space. And so non-open space would be like housing, residential, commercial, industrial. But they also have open space, which would be like your parks, your golf courses, things of that nature. And so whenever we started looking at that data source, we actually got some good numbers all the way through 2022 and 2023 at that time, and it gave us a good picture as to rate of change on a per acre basis around the state. The beauty of that data is that it is detailed and more detailed than just saying something's in agriculture. We can actually compare row crops versus pasture in forestry, for instance. But it's also limited in the fact that you only see aggregate numbers for a given county. And if you're in a certain county, folks know that, especially in East Tennessee, the east side of a given county can be very different than the west side. The south can be very different than the north side.
Right.
If I think of your county, you could be at someone's pasture and you enter the gate and it looks like really good topsoil, and then you go about 20 yards in and it's like, oh, we don't have a lot of topsoil. You might find a
Yeah.
pit, a pothole, or
Yep.
a sinkhole, or some rock sticking out. So it's one of those deals where it's like, okay, this data source is really good, but we need more detailed data. And
Right.
so from there, we decided that we had to search for better data. And in particular, we were looking for GIS shapefiles. For the folks that don't know what that means, because I was also unaware at that time. GIS shapefiles is basically everyone's property that gets reported to the county property assessor's office has a boundary, and then everything that you can think of in terms of describing that property is captured in these shape files. So it has a picture, it has the shape, to the point, where we know we all have these different weird polygon type parcels. So it captures all that. And then each one of the parcels has at least 142 variables, which could be something simple as what type of gas hookup the parcel has, whether it's public or private or none, but also detailed data to the point where we can tell the topography of that parcel.
Gotcha.
So we decided that's what we needed. So we started going to property assessors' offices to collect that data. And there was a person at the time who's still with IPS, Institute of Public Service, which is a UT institute. His name's Joe Griffin, and he actually helped me collect the parcel data from the state level, or for the state and for counties that are not reported to the state. And so from that perspective, I was able to get a complete data set. It took a while to get certain counties, but we got them. And from that standpoint, it allowed us to get down to not only a parcel count of conversion around the country, I mean, around the state, but also to a decimal point. So we got exact measurements. And so for folks that are wondering, Cropscape, and I described what it was from an aggregate level versus these parcel data layers or parcel level. We actually used it and compared to see if the Cropscape data layer matched what the parcel level was saying or the parcel data was saying, and we were getting confidence of around 99 to 98%. So the coverage, it was one, gave us a lot of I guess validity to the Cropscape data layer from USDA. But also it showed us, not only can we describe what's happening in the county at an aggregate, but we can go down all the way to the parcel and know exactly what's happening. And so then that's what led to having there was a key figure that came out of there, which many folks have probably seen. But it's a figure of the state of Tennessee, and it talks about the rate of change from 1997 to 2017, and the rate of change on a per year, per day, per hour basis, which was approximately 6 acres at that time. And then from 2017 till now, where we see the acreage change per year, per day, per hour, and we get up to almost 10 acres per hour now since 2017. And so that's
Oh,
the figure
nice.
that a lot of people see, or I get questions about in terms of how did we get to this data. And kind of going back to the very simple question that Commissioner Hatcher asked of is this true or not? We ended up with that figure that, yeah, it's in one clean figure, but it took years, to literally to get to that point where we have these 6 data points, and it took a lot of time on the road. It took a lot of talking with property assessors, and then it just from an analysis perspective, it was one of those things that I didn't know if it would be, or I didn't know how hard it was going to be and how time consuming. But I'll give you an example. We can have a county, and they might have 500,000 parcels in that county, but then you start multiplying that by 142 because we have 142 variables for each parcel. And
That's
then
a
if we
big math problem.
yeah, and if we have 10 years worth of data on that county, that gets pretty big pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I had a grad student at that time, Leanne Hopper, who made a thesis out of that and was talking about the change and the probabilities of change over time. And she did a heck of a job for us in terms of cranking out maps and figures. And it led to some research that we're continuing to do now. And so it was a time consuming, event, or time consuming problem solving event, but it was one of the ones that for me I think it's going to be one that will probably have the most impact from my career, or
Yep.
for my career, in terms of having impact beyond the agriculture producers that I interact with or help every day, but more from a state perspective. That was the figure that was used a lot for the most recent Farmland Preservation Act signed this past session.
Yeah. And I was just about to say that and echo what you just mentioned is like I think that has that piece of work took so long to do, so many hours of labor and investment of time. Um, and that's a lot of numbers to crunch too. But that's why that's what grad students are for, right? That's what I was always told in my master's program. But um, that will have such a lasting impact. And frankly, I think there's people I know that aren't involved in agriculture, like some of our county government officials here in Jefferson County have asked me about those numbers. And
Mhm.
it's cool to see and hear you talk about the process of how you guys did that, went about doing it, and ultimately how you arrived at those data points. But I think that's crucial, not just to, like you mentioned, counties or farmers or agriculturalists as a whole. I think it's to the whole state because it
Yeah.
brought to the forefront a really really big hot button issue to the dinner table essentially.
hmm I think whenever we got to those numbers and in the we did our report, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is interesting, and depending upon who you are, as an economist, I just provide information, and it's up to someone to take that information and they can have their opinion on it.
Yeah.
But it was eye-opening whenever I would present this data to different groups that probably have never seen an ag economist present to them before. And I like, for instance, the State County Planners Conference, or
Hmm.
the Tennessee Municipal League, or the County Mayors Conference that they have every year. And then that would spark a lot of conversation within those rooms in terms of, okay, so now what? Is it that this is bad to us? What do you think? And then it would turn into conversation of, this. I put it into this context of the very last slide that a lot of people see whenever I talk about it is land is a limited resource,
Hmm.
and conversion of it impacts us all, whether you are in agriculture or you're not involved in agriculture, and how we efficiently use this limited resource is critical to not only someone's local government but the state.
Yeah.
And that's when I put the ball back in their court and say, hey, if you're saying this is an issue for you, and you are thinking about how to uh, take the information and think about your county, what other problems or what other aspects to this is missing? Because we know that there's a fine balance, or there is a balance out there of agriculture and non-agriculture land in a given area. So a county, for instance, it's one of those deals where it's like almost like a portfolio.
Yeah.
If you're all in if you're all your land's in agriculture, if all your land is in residential, that's probably not a good thing. There's an efficient use of the acres that someone is allotted of this
Yeah.
limited resource. And what is
Y-
that?
Yeah.
That was one of the most interesting things that would happen.
Yeah, it's almost from a county and a state perspective. Counties, I guess, are microcosms or micro ecosystems, if you will, for some people out there. But like as a whole state, you're essentially pushing all your chips into one pile.
Hmm.
Like you're going all in the poker hand, saying, if depending on how you use land and things like that. That's a cool way to think
Hmm.
about it. Never thought about it like that.
Yep.
Yeah. I know that's probably not an easy conversation to have with people who are making big decisions on the county level and state level. So I'm glad that's why you're a PhD and I'm not.
No, 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 no. It's one of those deals where it was like, well, that's out of my that's not my department.
Yeah,
That was
I
the quick
just
thing.
I
The
just
quick my
present
quick
the
response.
information. You guys do with it what you will. So
Right.
that's
And
that's what we do in extension.
yeah, and if we had somebody that was like if I was on a panel and you had someone that was a policy person, that's when you just turn the microphone over to them and say, that's a policy question. Here you go.
Yep, yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's funny. Well, I know just from personal experience, I know, being, of course, you work on campus and you're around the Knoxville area a lot, but you also travel the state quite a bit, and living in Knoxville for quite a while now, just the amount of land that's changed in and around our area. But I know back home, I'm from Sumner County. I know you use Sumner
Hmm.
County as an example a lot when you present because of how rapidly it's changed. And I
Yeah.
think part of that's proximity to Nashville. And a lot of corporations have moved their headquarters there or kind of heading things up. And frankly, quite a lot of meetings are happening there now. Big conferences and conventions. Like my brother, um, he works for a retail company, and I was talking to him on the way to work the other day, and he said, "Well, I'm pulling into the convention center. I got to go present here in about an hour." And I'm like, what are you presenting for?" He said, "This is the national trade show for vendors like us." And I thought, why in Nashville? I mean, that usually was Atlanta. That was somewhere in Florida, but now it's Nashville, Tennessee. And
Yep.
so Sumner County's kind of become a bedroom community for Davidson County.
Right. No, you have that, and then another prime one that's in agriculture is NCBA. Yeah, the
Yep.
National Cattlemen's and Beef Association means going to be in Nashville the next 2 years. So
Yep.
that's going to be an economic driver for the surrounding area and Nashville as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, being in Jefferson County here, it's looking. I want to say it's looking the exact same way, but I guess that's why I love Jefferson County so much. It reminds me of my home county when I was growing up. But
Yeah.
as we go throughout time, especially in the last 5 years, it's you've seen farmland converted to whatever it may be, or taken out
Yeah.
of production, things like
You know,
that.
you mentioned Knox County and stuff, and
Mhm.
I travel a lot around the state. But just like here, I do live in Knox County, and if I think of an area like Hardin Valley,
Oh gosh, yeah.
from when I first moved here in December of 2019 till now, Hardin
Hmm.
Valley is completely changed.
Hmm.
And that's where it gets back to the conversation. Is that good or bad? I don't know. But one thing I do know is if you get caught on Hardin Valley Highway, or if you're trying to get around the Pellissippi Highway in Hardin Valley around 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, it is not fun.
No, good
So,
luck.
yeah. So a simple, 1 mile drive turns into about a 20-minute drive on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, well, we used to live over kind of out in the country on the east side of Knox County until we moved to our new house this past fall. But Asheville Highway, 11E, it's the main vein going all the way from up into Greene County all the way to Knoxville. and
Mhm.
past both of those cities. And so, you know, when I was in college, we lived kind of out that way as well, me and two of my buddies, and it would take us 15 minutes to get home from the ag campus, which
Mhm.
for y'all that don't know, it's on the western side of campus at UT. But you get on Neyland Drive and you just go right around, hook right into James White Parkway and hop on 40 East. 15 minutes, no problem. Now it's at least 30, 35. And that was,
Yeah.
7, 8 years ago. It's really not been that long. Just
Right.
that drastic change of the amount of people that are here now. And, there's a multitude of reasons why people are moving here. It's a great place to live, but also, we kind of had a great migration a couple of years back as well. But
Yep. Yep.
um, but you're right. I know like the Gibbs area is another one kind of close to where we're at.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it is blowing up like crazy and
Yep.
stacking homes close as you can and stuff like that. But
It,
it's like you mentioned, it's kind of you're in a hard spot because is that good or bad?
mhm.
Really know. So
I tell you what, you say Gibbs, and um, if you're trying to go somewhere in the fall or spring on a Saturday, in that area, there's baseball going on, and
mm-hmm.
those little roads get packed really fast too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned conversion rates earlier, and I think you were getting some stuff prepped to kind of showcase that on the website. So if you want to go ahead and um, share your screen and it kind of walk some of these folks through, because I don't think a lot of people know that we have this website available, and a lot of this data is public knowledge now. And so, can you kind of share a little bit with that, or share a little bit of that with us, I should say?
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen now. And to your point, I think some people know that this is out there and some people don't. And then there's also an aspect of, they might see it, but they don't really know what it means.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone wanted to Google UT Center Farm Management and you go to our website, this is the home landing page. Or if somebody wanted to do farmmanagement.tennessee.edu, it would take you straight here. And when you land on this page, when it comes to the land databases and the land information, somebody can come here, they scroll down here, and right here in the middle where it says agriculture, farm, and forest land loss in Tennessee, you click this learn more about land loss, and it'll take you to a segment in our website that gives you some description of what the interactive dashboard is. And we have data on here since 2010. And if you look on the right here, it will say developed, cropland, pasture land, hay, and forestry. And so developed would be the residential type data that you're looking at. Cropland would be everything. We grouped everything together. That's a row crop, so we just said cropland.
Okay.
Pasture land would be land that is not used for hay, but it's pasture. You have hay acres and you have forestry acres. And if you were on this website, you can actually come in here. You can go all the way back in time. So I'll just take it all the way back to 2010, and it starts as a baseline. And you can see, we'll just do developed non-open space for this one. And if I click this little button right here, it'll start showing you the change and the percent change over time by the year through time.
Okay.
So 2016, we're at 2017, we're at 2018, 2019, and it'll take you all the way to 22 on this dashboard. The reason why we stop at 22 is because this was made in a unit called or a program called Tableau. And when we made this in Tableau, we thought that's what we were going to use moving forward into the future.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, we're going to be changing to a different software program that will be public facing that will actually have when you open it, it'll be geared to having the most current data at that time, so we don't have to continue to manually update it. It'll automatically scrape from the websites that they're based off of or where the data is coming from. So in this case, Cropsgate, it'll actually pull the most up-to-date data. So if Ryan Brown was like in January 1 of, well, I'll just give us a random year of 2026, you
Mm-hmm.
click on it, you'll have the most up-to-date data through that day.
Oh,
Now, if you
cool.
go in December of 2026 and you click on it, you're going to get some different data because those databases have been updated and it automatically does it for you.
So it's
Um,
almost real time data,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Cool.
So then, like if we do, like we'll just do this the cropland. So major crops. Again, we grouped them all together. So if you're thinking corn, soybean, wheat, these are all grouped into there. So if I come back in here for acreage coverage, so if I go back to
Hey,
2010,
hey, Charlie, just for the viewers, one fast, where your cursor is, that differentiation rate, negative means what exactly?
it means it went down in percent. So wherever this baseline is, so with 2010 as your baseline, it's
Mhm.
saying how much percent of acres was lost
Okay.
over time.
Okay.
So good question. So if I come in here and I push this, you start seeing this change of orange, which is not as drastic as 17.94, which is the max that we have.
Hmm.
Um, and then if you go through 2019, you start seeing where we have major changes occurring. And
Okay.
one thing you can tell immediately is if you're in 2022, you have some of that weird orange color, fade color in there in the
Hmm.
east side and the middle Tennessee, and you have stronger orange in west. One, you're not going to have as much row crop change occur from a percentage basis in East and Middle Tennessee because we don't have a lot of base acres out there or acres that are
Sure.
dedicated to that type of production. So, if you're in West Tennessee or on the Delta area and you have acres change, you're going to see that pretty dramatically because there's so many more acres out there.
Right.
Um, so that's part of it. But also, it's this year-to-year baseline change relative to 2010, and
Okay.
then also if you think about where we would have a lot of that type of production in Middle and East Tennessee, in 2010, a lot of those acres have had already been converted out,
Right.
those large big tracts. And
Hmm.
so over time, we have smaller tracks that are being converted out, or they could be theoretically, put it this, because you remember this is a 30 by 30 meter snapshot. We know that there are people that sell land and they get put in smaller chunks, and someone might rent that smaller chunk. And yeah, it's not producing as much as it used to, but it's still in a row crop production.
Hmm.
So it might be instead of one big 100-acre tract full of row crops, it might be eight 12-acre tracts that have, eight of those acres are dedicated to row crops because somebody's renting it out from those owners. And
Gotcha.
so you could
Okay.
see some of that happening. So there's also this underlining um, dedication of land or what I would call like bona fide commercial
Hmm.
agriculture. That's one of the things that TDA would ask us often during that time was when it comes to agriculture, you can have a parcel and it get broken up into many different parcels. How much of
Hmm.
that is still in what would be considered commercial agriculture versus someone that's just tinkering with a small garden or doing something different. So that's
Gotcha.
another one of the things you got to remember because the way the data is developed.
Okay.
Um, so somebody could go through that. One of the other cool things, besides just acres, if I come in here and I go to Jefferson County, I can actually pull up the major crop acreage change since 2010 that was lost in Jefferson County. So in 2010 through 2022, there were 604 acres lost. Um, Population in 2022 was 56,727. If I go back to 2010 and I go to Jefferson County, there was 51,714 people
Yep.
in Jefferson County. So there's other stats that someone could go pull out from this data set that we've embedded. The tool that I was mentioning earlier, from a public facing standpoint, we'll have other things like that, like population. We'll
Hmm.
have some GDP, some of the more common, or like I would say the more common data sets or data points that people look for from a macro perspective.
Right.
But population was one of the reasons why we put that in there because it was like, okay, if we've lost that much land, how much more people did we have? And
Yeah, you could tell the traffic has increased, but by how much has it increased? Yeah. Okay.
right, so it's like if we take like a Davidson County in 2010, there were 627,746 people. So if we have that number, keep that in the back of our head. And we go to Davidson County, there were 708,144 in 2022.
Do Sumner
Uh,
County. I'm curious.
we go to Sumner County. Where's that little county?
Right there.
There you go. So in 2022, there's 3,611 people, or 203,858 people in
Wow.
2022, and there was 36 or 3,611 acres of row crop being
Yeah.
converted out. So keep in mind, each one of these are their own segment. So you could have a lot more hay or forestry be taken out from that area, but that was in 2022. So 203,000. So let's go back to 2010. There was
Oh,
161,000.
yeah.
So that's a big jump, right? You go from 161,000 to over 200,000 in 12 years.
Yeah.
And so that's quite a bit. If we go to, you can do the same thing with pasture here. So it's the same kind of concept on the
Hmm.
meter. But if we go to Sumner County, look at the acres change, 50,349.
Yep. Yep.
And so not you, that county didn't lose a lot of row crops, but it lost a heck of a lot of pasture.
There's more cattle and calves out that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's when someone sees it, it'll be like, oh, it's not that bad. It only had 600 acres of row crop. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's more to the story. Let's look at the other
Yeah.
facets
Yeah.
of what it could be.
Float
Uh,
over to Jefferson County. I'm curious to see what Jeff County was.
so 19,721 was lost since 2010 in that county. Um,
Jeez. Mm.
of just pasture. If we did hay, let's see hay. There's a lot more red here.
Hmm. Yeah.
Jefferson County dropped 20,581.
Yeah.
So Sumner County 57,000. So
Yeah.
it's a big difference when you start adding up all these little increments of land. And like I said earlier, this is that coverage data. We then got to the next level, which was the parcel data. And if you scroll down in this website, you can actually get to these what we call one pagers. So we refer to these as one pagers.
Hmm. Yep.
There are 86 counties here that are publicly available. There are 9 counties that are not publicly available because they do not report their data to the state. And what I mean by that is if Charley Martinez was a county and Ryan Brown was the state, I have an iPhone, Ryan Brown has an Android. They don't those are different software programs.
Hmm.
So the 9 counties that are in the state that don't report is because they use a different software program for their recording of parcels versus the state
Gotcha.
uses a different one. So
Gotcha.
um, so to get to that data, we did talk to the property assessors, and that's what I was saying earlier that we went out and drove to those folks and got the data from them. It could be there was a couple of counties out west that we did 1 day events. So drive out 6 hours, get some data, get the parcel data, and drive all the way back to Knoxville in 1 day. So it's when I
Ooh,
say that we put a lot of time and effort into it, I mean there were some
that's
of
a
the long
lot of time
days.
and effort. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there was long days. But if we go in here to Jefferson County and we click on this, it takes you to a PDF, and I'm gonna do my best here. So if I back this out just for the viewing side, here we have parcel data change that occurs from 2014 to 2023. And earlier there were some acres changes that you could see from hay and pasture and cropland for Jefferson County.
Hmm.
One of the things that can happen is, let's say we have crop or forestry, and someone has those acres allotted, or someone's producing or has those acres dedicated to one of those two. They can go to the next year and say, "Well, I don't want to do row crops, or I'm clearing out this forestry or this timber," and now their acres are technically pasture, right? Or hay, it could be hay ground. So there is change within agriculture.
Hmm.
But when you look at the dashboard I was showing you, there are some aspects of we know developed is increasing of that acreage, and that's a definite number. But something can go between agriculture, and that is important to monitor and understand and measure. But when we started getting to this parcel level data, this allowed us to have exact areas of space or exact areas of land and what happened into the future. And
Yeah.
so how we do that is we look at the parcel and see if how it is designated for use. And so if it's in agriculture production, it can go into um, two different buckets. It can go into greenbelt or it can be still in ag production. So that's important to monitor here. So if we have a parcel that is in greenbelt, that is considered agriculture. If we have a parcel of land that is in production but is not in greenbelt, it is farm. And then you can have parcels of land that are forestry but not in greenbelt, and that is what a forest parcel is. So we have
Okay.
three buckets that are dedicated to ag and forestry: agriculture, farm, and forest.
That makes sense.
So for what Commissioner Hatcher and the stakeholders wanted to know was, okay, for a given parcel or a given area of land, when it moves forward into time, does it leave ag, farm, or forestry? Does it go on to something else? And so within the parcel data, we can actually identify the parcels in 2014 and where they are now. And if those parcels went on to be something else besides farm, agriculture, or forestry, that's what we were monitoring here.
Okay.
So all that to say is, if you were saying, Charlie, at the bottom, at the end of the day, what does this one pager tell me? It tells me the types of change. So we have agriculture, farm, and forestry, and if they went to residential, commercial, or other. And we have that broken down for each one of those. We have the count for or the number for the number of parcels converted, and we have the number of acres converted. So here at the bottom, we can see it's almost 10,000 parcels have changed over time since 2014 to 2023, and there's been a little over 6,600 acres that have changed in Jefferson County. And if you look here, you can see spatially where it is occurring within that county.
Yeah.
Um, and so you have some of these hot spots where this is all red, big chunk of red here. You have a couple of bigger chunks here, but then we also have some more down here, like in this lower right-hand side, where it's a little bit more. You see some red, but they're not in big, large chunks. And if someone could ask, what is other? Down here, other includes city, county, federal, state, industrial, religious, educational, science, charity, state assessed, or local utility is the other. So parcels get labeled either agriculture, farm, forestry, residential, commercial, or any one of those others. That's how the state operates every parcel. So
Gotcha.
so it's one of those deals where when you're here, you can have these one pagers for all of these counties that you see here, and you can go look wherever you want it to go. And these are all publicly available on this website if someone wanted to go download them. And what you can print them off, you can do, take it. If you zoom in on those PDFs, you can actually see some outlines of the parcels
Mm,
as they were back in time. So that's another cool thing that you can do if you can download the PDF and look at it.
yeah. I know some of our local officials have asked me for those specifically, and it's been good. I applaud you guys and the work y'all have done because I can actually hand them something physical and be like, "Hey, this," or at least give them the website and they can look it up if they want to compare and contrast some things. But no, that is there's not a lot of people out there who know that's available to see that data and to kind of see the impact we've had over the
That's probably
last.
on me.
Do what?
I said that's probably on me that we haven't gotten it out there more.
No, you're good, buddy. Well, I mean, it's a hot button issue that we're all talking about, and I just don't think people know that's something you guys work on. When you think ag economics, it's like, well, they tell us the price of corn, beans, when to sell calves, when to, do LRP like we were talking about earlier.
Yep,
But there's such a bigger scope. That's almost the 10,000-foot view of, hey, this is a big economic impact on a big agricultural state. We do have an agricultural seal here in Tennessee. So, um, with that being said, I know you said earlier before we hopped on here and started recording about can we talk a little about transition planning and specifically our Farmland Legacy Program? I know we've got one of those coming up later on this fall between Jefferson County and Hamlin County, but can you kind of go into some details about that and some of the work you guys have done there?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about farmland conversion and we talk about the Farmland Preservation Act and people, and I only use that because that's the most recent hot topic when it comes
Mm.
to farmland conversion is the Farmland Preservation Act and what that's going to mean to landowners and producers and farm families and everything in between. How I describe the Farmland Preservation Act, it's a tool in the toolbox when it comes to trying to move your family farm or your farm to either the next generation or to whoever's going to end up taking it over, if your goal is to keep it in agriculture and in production. And so a while back, the UT Extension recognized that there was a need to uh, educate or provide other tools for landowners and producers to start thinking about the next step. And I think a lot of it was spurred on a couple of census ago. And even though I did say that, the response rate has gone down over time, inside those data points, there was still a trend where the average owner, the operation manager, the operator, however they were defining it that year, the average age has been increasing over time.
Yeah.
And so, with that knowledge, there was a team here at UT, and the managed team was a part of it, where they decided they needed to start a farmland legacy program. And what it was at that time was a program dedicated to thinking about the next step, because there was probably going to be a lot of land and farms changing hands in the next 10 to 15 years. And so that program, it kind of comes in spurts where it was operated pretty heavily for a couple of years, and then it kind of slows down a little bit, and then it picks up again. Since I got here in 2010 or in 2020, we decided that we needed to update the materials because inside Farmland Legacy, the core of it is a manual, and if you can think about it as a small book, if you want to, but within this book there are there's 9 chapters dedicated to you want to transition your farm or you want to transition your estate to the next generation. Here are the things that you need to think about, and it lays it out in a nice little process or a nice 9-step process. And in 2021, we updated it to be more current, so new data, new information on in terms of what's happening. And currently, we've started doing more farmland legacies in the last year or two because we recognize again that there's going to be this large, there's a large proportion of people out there that are going to be transitioning their property. And so we started revamping it again here recently. So we are going to have a new book. But that should not deter you from taking a farmland legacy program in the fall. And I want to put that caveat out there because it doesn't matter whenever a manual is updated or not, the same types of, I guess, hurdles are still going to be
Mm.
present. And so
Yep.
we still run it. We have it in the center, the UT Center Farm Management, and it's one of the programs that we operate alongside UT Farm Fundamentals, Master Farm Manager, Tax School. We have Farmland Legacy, and quite honestly, it's one of the ones that you could go into a program as a specialist. And I remember the first couple that I did, I was like, oh, there might not be that many people. And then you roll in and it is packed. And
Yep.
it's not packed with just like the producer. It's packed with the spouse. It might be packed with their parents because their
Hmm.
parents is the one that's technically the owner. It could be their kids that have probably never been to a extension program, but they're in their 30s and 40s, and they're getting ready to start taking over the property, and they're like, well, I
Yep.
guess I can start doing something. And so you get a clientele that shows up to these events that may have never seen an extension event before in their life, but it's
Right.
something that's important to them.
Yep.
And the Farmland Legacy is a program that's dedicated to helping people think through the process of estate and transition planning for their farm. And along the way, we talk about the things that are not so fun to talk about, like,
Hmm.
untalked about debt between
Yep.
or on the farm or the farm owns versus management transition and thinking about transitioning the operation from a business standpoint and the management standpoint rather than just an asset standpoint of the land and keeping something within the family. And we talk about different options like easements, LLCs, different types of ways that a business can be transitioned. And so it's it's one of the most complex decisions that someone has to make, but we try to help make it as clear as we can by providing this roadmap and helping folks. Sometimes the best thing that happens is that the conversation starts because they went to the program and saw what we were talking about. And we also, for participants, they get a fillable PDF. One of the things that we added the last time we revamped it a couple of years ago was whenever we did Master Farm Manager, we have a question in there about a will and how many people actually have a written will. And it's almost 1 out of 10 have a written will. And so we realized that part of the hurdle to that is they just don't know what to write down or how to write it down. And so we actually provide a fillable PDF for folks in the class that they can fill it out and print it off or fill it out and leave it in their email box, and it serves it was made by lawyers, and it serves as a break glass in case of emergency type will, and it has things from all your assets and who should get what. And it's one of those deals that at least it's something, because oftentimes people don't have anything written down. So it's a quick fix to try to help that process. And then I think in turn it also has people thinking about questions to ask to the next generation,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, hey, I didn't think about this until I started filling out this question. It could be something as simple as, the banking information. It's like, do you even know who our banker is for the farm? Like things like that. And so,
Yep.
like little things that we think are common knowledge, and come to find out, it's really not that common, and it's actually more complex. So that,
Right.
in a nutshell, is what Farmland Legacy is.
Yeah. Well, I'll speak personally. We had our first one in 2023 here in Jefferson County, and my colleague Manny Bedwell in Hamlin County, we kind of teamed up on it. I think we had 14 to 15 participants, but in that small group of people, we had over 2,000 acres of farmland represented.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, in that case, we had a smaller group, but a larger land mass represented. However, um, I got many, many, many compliments and side conversations after the fact at programs later on down the road. Um, there was one lady, she came up and said, we had already started working on some of this transition planning, but we changed the way we did some of the things because of what we learned in the class. And so I
Good.
was like, I was elated to hear that. And then, um, it's always interesting because we know that most of the people that come to our events, right, especially locally, it's always interesting to think about those families where kind of the dynamic. Let's say you've got let's say you've got a mom and dad, a multi-generational farm. Well, one out of the three kids wants to farm, right?
Hmm.
And then the other two don't want to have anything to do with it. How do you navigate that? Where do you even start? So giving people options and making them aware and educating them like, hey, there are other ways to go about this rather than just splitting it up three ways, things like that.
Hmm.
Ultimately, it's up to them on how they do that. But personally, my family, we've got right at 140 acres back home, in Middle Tennessee, that I'm way down the line as far as the piece of the pie is concerned. But none of like my cousins grew up there. My grandmother was born on that farm, or one of them. My great grandmother was born on the smaller parcel, which we still have. There's remnants of the log cabin where they lived back in the day. So it's like we never plan to get rid of it, right? Never to sell it. But how do you go about teasing that out in the future with so many descendants down the line, and deal with it that way? So, but I learned a lot just from listening to the class as well, personally.
I think the one of the things that is always common, but or is prevalent, but is never really talked about, is like when it comes to farmland transition or estate planning, there is not a one catch-all
Nope.
solution.
Nope.
Every family is different. I mean, you're talking about your family with the Middle Tennessee. My family, my dad was one of 15 kids, and when my grandparents' land, was getting divided up, my dad is on the younger end of the 15
Hmm.
estates, and some of the older ones had multiple people, and so you're talking about upwards of 20 to 25 people, having a say, and so it's one of those deals that it can get complex really fast, and
Yeah.
no matter the size of the land or the amount of land, there's also, like you mentioned, sentimental value that people
Hmm.
assign different value to that than you do, and so there's always this underlining, if we have to sell it, what does that look like? Or if we want to keep it, what does that look like? I might want to farm it in 20 years after I retire, or I might want to farm it now. Like there's always these gives and takes, and there's always the conversation about what I refer to as outlaws, being that you have people that get married into the family that are in-laws, and how does that become
Yeah.
incorporated
How,
into certain
what's their
aspects?
vote? And do they have a vote? That's the other part.
Yeah, and
You
so
get into
like
some really weird situations.
yeah, and so like in the class, I use one of my friends out of California. They are a multi-generation walnut producer,
Mm.
and they have a board. Everyone has certain responsibilities, but to become a member on the board, you have to have a undergraduate degree in anything, and that was one of
Mm.
the requirements if for the farm that was implemented 60 years ago. It's like if you want to come and have a say in this, you have to go get a undergraduate degree. So it's like things like that. I mean, just depends upon the family and who are making the decisions. And I think that's where like the Farmland Preservation Act becomes somewhat conversational too, is because people
Mm.
think about conservation easements or easements in general, and some folks it's like you can have two identical twins, and one might say the easement's the best thing ever, and if that's what we need to do, and the other one might say absolutely not.
Yeah.
This is hampering the next generation. Why would we do that? And so you have you have two different sides of a coin there, and I think one of the things to remember is that, for instance, the easement is just a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
It's not an end all be all, because nothing is end all be all when it comes to estate and transition planning.
Yeah. Yeah. You could get off in the weeds so easily about different scenarios, but you hit the nail on the head, especially talking about farm transition planning. There's not a cookie cutter way to do it. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is from talking with folks here in our county is that's basically the perception is, oh, well, we just pass it on to the next generation. Well, there's different ways you can do it, especially when you get into the into the discussion of, well, I want to farm and my brother or my sister don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to farm or live here. So how do you deal with that then?
Hmm.
But yeah, very, very interesting stuff. And I'm glad that you guys provide that program and we can bring it to locally to our counties and share that with
Right.
folks because it's very, very important. Provides a lot of um, you see some immediate feedback from it, but really that's generational. That's generational changes and long term impact in families' lives. So,
I
but
think it's one of the programs that when I first started here, I knew we had it and I knew we would utilize it, but it's almost like the farmland conversion study, where you don't realize the type of impact you're having until someone says something like you said earlier. It was like we started this and then we actually changed it because there was a
mhm.
better way to do it, and that's where it's
Yep.
like, okay, that makes like we said
Makes you
earlier,
feel
it
good.
makes it
Yeah.
makes the job more fun for what you did. It's like, okay, that was worth it.
Yeah. That's why we get up in the morning. That's why we do what we do.
You're
So.
right.
Well, we're almost going on about an hour. Do you have anything else you'd like to mention? Anything exciting coming up from you guys in AggieCon?
There, when you say that, it's like it depends on who's asking if it's exciting or not. But we in the UT Center Farm Management, I'll give some updates there. We actually have someone starting in the east side of Tennessee, and Jake Watts.
Mhm.
His first day is today, August 1st of 2025, and so We are excited to have him start. He's a graduate, two-time graduate of from UT in animal science for his undergrad and his bachelor's, or his undergraduate and his master's. And then we have one vacancy out in West Tennessee that we hope to fill. But as I mentioned earlier, we are revamping Farmland Legacy. We are also making a marketing program, or like kind of like a, if you're in row crops and you want to do marketing like risk management for like futures and options, that's being developed to where it's going to be an online class where someone can take that and learn about those types of programs, and is geared towards the row croppers. We also have programs that we're revamping in the UT Farming Fundamentals program. If you've taken that class before, or if you've heard about it, it is a 100% online class, or it has that option, but it's based on looking at YouTube videos and taking Qualtrics surveys, and we have to monitor it on the back end. That's actually being converted right now to be a fully automated system where you actually get smaller videos instead of the 45 to an hour long videos. They'll be broken up into 10, 15-minute videos with surveys intertwined in those videos. So it's more interactive and everything is automated. So you don't have to wait on us at UT or in Morgan Hall to get your certificate to you. So we pick up some efficiency. And then the other big one that we're getting ready to start, I guess I keep saying revamping, but we're getting ready to knock the dust off and relaunch again. There was a program started by Dr. Emmett Rawls, the Tricarcass Futurity Program, where producers in Tennessee could send cattle out to the Midwest, family feeders, and they could get those cattle fed out and get all the performance data and carcass data that they wanted, and it was, you'd get that information. So if you had questions on what is the end product of your breeding objective, so from the farm when you're selecting the sire or selecting the cows that you're buying, and what is the end product, you can answer that. And right now, there's been a big push to have more local processing in the
Mhm.
state. So there's a lot of people wondering, what should I do with the cattle? You know, which ones makes the best product? We are going to have that inside the UT Center of Farm Management, and we will be relaunching that this year. We hope to get a couple of producers that want to send cattle out to the Midwest, and if we do that, our goal is to get people trained in risk management for the cattle side of things. So if you're in that side or that segment, how do you use the futures? How do you use options? You know, what price is good, what price is bad, relative.
Right.
And with Jake Watts coming on, he's going to be taking that, and him and I will be working on that program this fall and then through the spring to try to get people sitting cattle that way. And if we get enough of producers, I'd really like to take a group of them out there to those yards, and that way they can see them, you know, in person in the feed yards, and know there's just something about whenever you breed them and you get them fed off and you ship them off as 700, 800 pounders, and you get to see them as 1,100, 1,200, 13, 1,400 pound animals, and what they can do from a beef perspective. I think
Right.
that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to be relaunching that. We do have a program scheduled for December that we will, as of now, we have one program scheduled in December where we're going to start doing some interest meetings. So if you're in Jefferson County or any of those surrounding counties and you're like, hey, I want to learn more about that, just get a hold of me, send me an email, or get a hold of Ryan and he can get a hold of me, and we can start that conversation. Um, if some folks have done it in the past, and then over the last couple of years, we haven't really sent any, and I get why. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
a producer, it's very hard to say no to 16, 1,700 bucks right now for a 5 weight.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
wait so long. But in reality, you send these animals out and you're selling them to the packer later. So it's just waiting on time. It's not like you're foregoing any revenue. You sell that animal later on. It's just a matter of you're selling it as a fed animal to a packer versus a feeder calf at your local market or whoever you're direct marketing with. So
Right.
um, that's one of the things that I think would be really neat, especially. I'm going to put my economist hat on. I think when prices come back down at some point again, this will be an option to say, okay, instead of taking, the 1,000 bucks for a 500 pounder again, which is still not bad money.
No.
But hey, I'd rather hang on and let's get some of this genetic information that you can't put a price on.
Yeah.
Um, So you never know what they are at the end of the day if you don't collect data or get any data back from whoever's downstream. So this would be a really unique program to
Right.
bring. And then from a ag econ department perspective, um, I've mentioned him earlier, Aaron Smith, our crops economist. He is moving on into administration on an interim basis. Don't ask me how long that will be.
We have been through enough interims lately. We just
Yeah.
it's until further notice,
I
basically.
thought interim was just a permanent position in a different language.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he will be moving on for a little bit, so I will be taking over his weekly crop comments. So if you're someone that's listening to this that gets Aaron Smith's crops comments, I am not Aaron Smith, but I don't write like him, but I hope to bring the same information that he's always providing, but it might be a little bit different spin, just from my perspective on things. But we will still, have those. We're not going to miss them. I think next year is the 50th anniversary or 50th year anniversary of having these comments on a weekly basis. So
No pressure. No
yeah, no
pressure.
pressure. Don't drop it across the goal line is kind of how I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't just hold the ball through the goal line, right?
That's
Uh,
right. That's right.
so we have that, and then um, it's we don't talk about it enough in extension, but in our department, we've had a growing amount of undergraduate students. Our department's getting, student or every year our undergraduate numbers are increasing. So, um, one of the things that I do find is that East Tennessee and Middle Tennessee, we get a lot of kids from those areas, and they are becoming, instead of going animal science, they're going ag business or ag econ, and then they tell their friend, and their friend tells their friend, and so we start getting bigger numbers. But it's there are some students that we got that are from around the neck of your woods, and
Yep.
and so if that's a tip of the hat, I think that's a good tip of the hat to that area in terms of creating, producing really good students that are really good and creative thinkers. We have a really strong group of undergrads and our grad students too. And so yeah, I think that's about the biggest things that we got in our department. If you're ever around Morgan Hall and want to check us out, and if you want to know more, if you want to know more about anything from the Ag Econ department, we all have open door policies. It's one of the best things about our department. Anybody can walk in and ask us questions, and we'd be happy to help. And it's those are the biggest updates, outside of the biggest one being, I guess, our crops economist becoming a admin.
Putting
So
on the big pointy hat there.
yeah,
Big,
exactly,
big, big shiny pointy hat from Dr. Smith
exactly.
and the leadership role there. So, well, Doc, I appreciate you coming on. If somebody wants to reach out to you specifically, you care sharing your contact info with them.
Yeah, no problem. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, the easiest way is my email, and it's cmart113@utk.edu. If you want to get hold of me directly, that's the easiest way. If you are like, I don't want to write that down, or you just get a hold of Ryan Brown and he'll get us linked up. One last shameless plug, or two of them actually. If you're a producer that's listening to this, and I've mentioned the Manage program before. If you don't know what that is, it's we have a team of folks dedicated to working one-on-one with producers from a farm and financial management standpoint. And if you have questions about financial statements, or if you want to know your financial health of your business, you can reach out to us the same way, and we'll have someone come visit you one-on-one with your farm. It don't cost you anything, except for your time, and we'd be happy to meet with you. We've actually started picking up a lot of people out in East Tennessee, in that region, because of Ty Wooliver. So Ty Wooliver is the extension specialist or the managed team member that's in that area. So he'd be the one visiting with you. And then if you're listening to this and you're always wondering, or you're interested in knowing what's happening, not only in Tennessee but in the Southeast. There's a group of economists from the land grants in the Southeast, and we produce commentary or write-ups every day in a program called Southern Ag Today. It's a simple email that comes to your email box at 6 a.m. Eastern, and it'll have a figure or two and some commentary and how it relates to the Southeast. And we cover everything from row crops to livestock to farm management to international trade aspects and how it impacts us. And so if that's something of interest, you can just Google Southern Ag Today, and there'll be a link there. You click on that and just put your name and email, and it'll start coming to your email box.
Sounds good. Well, Charlie, thank you again for coming on. We appreciate you, and we will see you guys next time here on Between the Fence Posts. Thanks, Doc.
Appreciate it.